Welcome back to the Law Show. Bob Kerrigan with you this morning. We're going to have different features in the Law Show. We hope that will be of interest to you. If you have an idea about something you'd like us to cover, something that you think would be of interest to our viewers, please let us know. You can do that at any time. You can email me, bob@kerrigan.com. Text us 850-444-4444, or give us a call at the firm, or email us. Any way you want to do it. You can also just call 444-4444. You don't need the 850 across Northwest Florida. We have offices across the Panhandle. We're a small firm that specializes in serious injury and death claims, and we have for many, many years. We are all board certified civil trial specialists in handling cases of serious injury or death claims in wherever they occur. If they occur in another state, we associate lawyers in that state. We can also represent people on special appearance in another state. We have to file certain papers with the courts there to do it. And then we always associate the best lawyers we can find in different jurisdictions, whether it's Virginia or Georgia or Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, wherever it might be. Those southeastern states are most likely states where we would have cases, but we've had others outside of that. Had a case not too long ago in Germany that we had, of course, refer to a German lawyer specialist. When we finished the last segment, I mentioned this accident that occurred at the Love Station on mile marker 70. I think they call that Mossy Head. So the time was 11:30 Friday, October the 2nd. He was driving a white Cadillac Escalade, that is our client was, and was hit by a U-Haul van. He was badly injured, and the poor guy didn't do anything. All he was doing was pumping gas and got run into by a van while he was pumping gas. It's just fortunate there wasn't an explosion or that he wasn't killed. But we are trying to get witnesses, locate witnesses to that. We will have an investigation feature every week on cases that we're investigating or situations that we're looking into. If you have something that you think we should look into that is a potential case, you can call us. Of course, there's no obligation at all when you call us. There's no fee. We don't charge anything to consider a case that someone calls us about. So you can do that if you'd like. Please let us know about anything you'd like us to cover. We're going to talk about legal concepts and Florida statutes and the court system and some other things over the course of the Law Show, which we hope will be of interest to people, maybe even younger people who are thinking about going into the law. We'll talk about some components of it that we hope you find, that you will find interesting. Text us now, right now, if you want to, 850-444-4444. You can text us right this minute and we will respond to you. If we use your question, your text issue on the air, we'll reference you by name if you permit us to do so. If you'd rather not, that's okay too. But please alert us to anything you think would be of interest to our viewers. We will also be passing along suggested links to websites that have consumer information that might be of benefit to you. We'll also cover recalls. We're looking at some recalls now. That'll all come along in future shows. This is our first show, and so we are just kind of laying the groundwork for what we are going to do. The general field that we practice law in is called a civil case or civil trials. That's a civil case, meaning it is not a criminal case. It's either one or the other, civil or criminal. But the civil cases include all kinds of things, contract claims and um, negligence claims and just a number of things that could be included in that. We will primarily focus on civil issues that involve injuries or deaths. And that's the area that we are sort of a subspecialty in. And so that's kind of that will be the focus of what we're going to be talking about. But we'll entertain other questions, and we'll respond to them if we think it's going to be of general interest to our viewer. So pass it along. Send anything you want. Again, bob@kerrigan.com. Or you can go to our website, kerrigan.com. You can email any of the lawyers there that you want to email, or, as I say, text message us, and we'll respond. The general field of negligence is best described as what reasonable people do and what reasonable people don't do. And if you don't do what a reasonable person would do under those circumstances, it can be negligence. It can be negligent, okay? Negligence, by definition, in Florida, is the failure to use reasonable care, the kind of care that a reasonable person would do under like circumstances by either doing something or not doing something, what a reasonable person would do. Well, what is a reasonable person? A reasonable person is just the average Jane or Joe. It's the average person. What would they do under the same circumstances? Would they drive 50 miles an hour through a school zone? Well, if the answer is no, then that supports an allegation that the driver was negligent, because reasonable people, seeing a school warning sign and a light flashing and all, are not going to accelerate through there and drive crazy. They're just not going to do that. That's not what reasonable people do. And that's what our juries evaluate. Our juries are evaluating what was reasonable. Was that a reasonable thing for this person to do or for this person not to do? So it's not hard to get the picture of what's involved in evaluating someone's conduct. There's an idea, one of my associates in the law, a good friend of mine, uses this illustration when you're talking about negligence. If you told somebody before you had them get in the car and go for a ride, if you said to them, we might have an accident. I want you to understand we might have an accident here, okay? So be prepared for it and don't be surprised, and I'll do everything I can. And then they get in there and they run the stop sign and they smash into somebody. And they said, well, listen, I told you that we might have an accident. Well, say, well, no, that doesn't excuse the negligent conduct. We all know you can have an accident, but you can also have an accident that's caused by negligence. And so in order for that person to recover, you'd have to show that what they did was unreasonable, not what a reasonable person does. And they don't get out of it and they don't escape responsibility by saying, well, I told you that we might have an accident. Well, we might have an accident does not mean that you are forgiven for any responsibility for it, because you did something that a reasonable person would not do. So that's negligence. So how does negligence work in terms of the typical kind of case? This is what all the lawyers that you see advertising on television, this is what they are advertising for, are automobile cases generally. Automobile cases are easy cases generally, and that's why lawyers advertise for them. They can handle them quickly and settle them, and they are inclined to move those cases along pretty quick. Many other kinds of cases don't move so quick. Medical negligence cases don't move along quickly. Claims against hospitals and nursing homes and assisted living facilities, that sort of thing. They don't go along quickly. So the lawyers that are advertising on television are advertising primarily for automobile accident cases. And they are pretty straightforward. I mean, if someone was speeding, they have a wreck, right? They weren't reasonable. They weren't driving in a reasonable way. Someone's injured. These are not hard cases to prove, fairly simple usually. So everybody's trying to get those cases. They advertise to try to get those cases. Trucking cases are a little bit more complex, or a little bit more complicated. We handle trucking injury cases. It requires a certain level of understanding of trucking regulations, the Department of Transportation regulations, and other restrictions on drivers of trucks and responsibilities that trucking companies have. They're a little bit more complicated. You see lawyers advertising for trucking cases. Well, why are they advertising for those cases? Because if a truck is involved in an accident, a big commercial vehicle, it almost always suggests there's a very significant injury. And a very significant injury means that the compensation level is going to be higher, and therefore the lawyer's interest in the case is going to be greater. So sometimes you see these lawyers advertising for trucking cases. But when we talk about qualifications of lawyers, we'll spend more time on that. Just because somebody advertises they want a trucking case doesn't mean they're competent to handle it. There are many questions you'd want to ask a lawyer that advertises for that, but it's at least telling you that they're out there and they're available to represent people in trucking cases. But that's why you see that specific kind of advertising. You don't see a great deal of advertising for medical malpractice cases because, first of all, they are so difficult, and second, they are so expensive to pursue that you just generally don't see too many lawyers advertising for medical malpractice cases, and they are very hard to do. Lawyers have to learn the medicine that's involved in a case, and medicine, these physicians have gone to school for years and years, developing a specialized understanding of their field of medicine, and the lawyers in trying to examine the physician. It's very difficult. And it's time consuming and expensive, and so you don't find too many lawyers advertising for that. But the proliferation of lawyers advertising on television especially has, and billboards too, has created just a general state of confusion in the marketplace as to who's competent, who's qualified, and who's not. So we will talk about ways for you to make that evaluation and encourage you to do so. One final comment before we close today is about the statute of limitations. This is a very critical component of our evaluation. Florida, in Chapter 95 of Florida statute, sets out the statute of limitations for all kinds of cases, including standard automobile cases, negligence cases, contract cases, professional malpractice cases. They're all subject to specific limitations of time, and it's critical that you don't delay when you have a significant case, an injury or death claim, that you seek competent counsel fast. The statute of limitations can run, and when it runs, it means that your claim is forever barred. That's why you can't wait to have it pursued. It should be done quickly. That's it for the Law Show this week. Bob Kerrigan with you. Thank you very much. We'll see you next Sunday at 9:30.